Picture this. It's November 20th, 1969. The Apollo 12 mission has been a huge success. As the astronauts are heading home, Mission Control gives them a pretty wild instruction. They're told to take their lunar module, the Intrepid, and just crash it, on purpose, right into the moon's surface. Now back on Earth, scientists are waiting for their seismometers to pick up a quick, clean thud. But what they got instead, well, it kicked off a mystery that would last for half a century.
Yeah, instead of a thud, the moon, it rang. It vibrated like a massive bell for almost an entire hour. The shock waves just refused to die down. Maurice Ewan, who was running the experiment, was completely floored. A few months later, they did it again. Crashed an even bigger piece of equipment into the moon. This time it rang for 4 hours straight. You know, this was the kind of weird, nagging anomaly that, when you pull on it, threatens to unravel everything you thought you knew.
The ringing was just so unnatural, so bizarre, that it led some people to ask a question that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. What if the moon isn't a natural satellite at all? This is the moment the Spaceship Moon theory was born, the idea that our moon is actually some kind of engineered hollow object, deliberately parked in our orbit by something or someone else.
Now, this wasn't just some random idea floating around on the internet. This was 1970. Two highly respected Soviet scientists, Michael Vassin and Alexander Sherbakov, published this incredible paper. And their argument was simple. If you just, for a second, get rid of the assumption that the moon has to be natural and just look at the raw data, the evidence starts pointing in a very different direction, an artificial one.
They laid out a really compelling case, piece by piece. They pointed to the moon's low density, which hinted it might be hollow. They looked at its craters, which were way too shallow. They noted the super strong titanium in the Apollo moon rocks, and then, of course, there were the almost unbelievable coincidences of its orbit and its perfect ability to eclipse the sun. Let's dig into these clues.
So, clue number one was density. Earth is pretty dense stuff, right? About 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. The moon, though, is way lighter, only 3.34. Now, if the moon and Earth were made from the same primordial material, you'd expect them to be pretty similar. This huge difference was the first piece of the puzzle for Vassin and Sherbakova that just screamed, maybe there's nothing on the inside.
Okay, clue number two, the craters. Think about it. When a giant meteor slams into a rocky world, it should dig a really deep hole. But on the moon, the craters are all weirdly shallow, almost like they're hitting a backstop. The argument was that meteors were blasting through a soft outer layer of dust, but then being stopped dead by an incredibly tough, maybe even armored hull just underneath.
And then you have this. This is the absolute geometric miracle that gives us a perfect total solar eclipse. The sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, but it just so happens to be exactly 400 times farther away. That makes them appear the exact same size in our sky. The famous author Isaac Asimov called this the sheerest of coincidence. But for the Spaceship Moon theorists, nah, that wasn't a coincidence. It was a signature, a sign of design.
So for years, these anomalies were genuinely tough to explain. They were real head-scratchers. But, science just keeps chipping away. As our tools got better and our understanding got deeper, we started finding answers. And the very first mystery to get solved was the one that started this whole thing, that ringing bell.
So why did it ring? It all comes down to one simple thing: water. Here on Earth, our crust is wet. It's full of water that acts like a cosmic shock absorber, soaking up seismic waves. The moon, on the other hand, is bone dry. I mean, it's just a giant ball of fractured rock that's been baked in a vacuum for billions of years. So when something hits it, there's nothing to stop the shockwaves. They just bounce and scatter around for hours. It's like the difference between hitting a block of wet clay versus a crystal goblet.
Okay, so what about the shallow craters in that supposed titanium hull? Well, in 2011, NASA's Grail mission mapped out the moon's gravity field, and it found the answer. Something called mascons. Basically, these are gigantic, super dense globs of material buried right under the biggest craters. What happened was, when a huge asteroid hit, it punched a hole in the crust, and this allowed denser material from the mantle to well up and fill the hole from below. And guess what that dense material is rich in? Titanium. So it wasn't an armored hull, it was more like a giant cosmic scab.
All right, so case closed, right? The moon isn't hollow, it's not an alien spaceship. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Because as scientists were busy solving these surface-level riddles, they stumbled into a much, much bigger problem. A fundamental crisis in the moon's very existence that was honestly far weirder than any conspiracy theory. You see, for decades, the leading theory for how the moon was born was called the giant impact hypothesis. The story went like this. About 4.5 billion years ago, a planet about the size of Mars, which we've nicknamed Theia, smashed into a very young Earth. And the debris from that epic collision got thrown into orbit and eventually clumped together to form our moon. It's a great story, it's very dramatic, but it had one fatal flaw.
The computer simulations of this kind of impact were crystal clear on one point. The vast majority of the stuff that would end up forming the moon, we're talking something like 80% of it, should have come from the impactor, from Theia. Only a tiny bit should have come from the early Earth. This means the moon should be like Theia's chemical child, with a totally different chemical fingerprint from our planet.
But it's not even close. When we analyzed the rocks the Apollo astronauts brought back, we found something that broke the models. The moon's isotopic fingerprint is a perfect match for Earth's. They are chemically indistinguishable. This became known as the isotopic crisis. I mean, it's like a DNA test showing a child is 100% related to its mother with zero genetic trace of the father. It was scientifically impossible.
This impossible chemistry meant the old story was wrong. It forced scientists to go back to the drawing board and imagine something far more violent, something much more extreme than just a simple collision. The answer wasn't a glancing blow. It was total annihilation. And this new, wild theory is called the synesthesia hypothesis.
So let's walk through this, because it's mind-blowing. The impact with Theia was so incredibly powerful that it didn't just chip off a piece of Earth. It completely vaporized Theia, and it vaporized most of Earth's rocky mantle too. For a few hundred years, our planet literally ceased to exist as a solid body. It became a giant spinning donut of superheated rock vapor. That's a synestia. And inside this crazy hot cloud, the material from both Earth and Theia mixed together perfectly, like cream and coffee, before it eventually cooled and condensed back down into two bodies, the Earth we know and our moon.
And what's so amazing, so elegant about this theory, is that it solves everything in one go. Why are the isotopes identical? Because the Earth and moon were born from the exact same cloud of mixed-up vapor. Why is the moon so much less dense? Because the heavy iron from both original planets sank to the center to reform Earth's heavy core, leaving the moon with the lighter stuff. And why does the moon ring like a bell? Because it formed in that scorching hot vapor cloud, which boiled away any water, leaving it permanently bone dry.
So, the synestia hypothesis was this beautiful theory that just neatly explained all the weirdness. But in science, a good story is never enough. You need proof. You need that smoking gun. And now, thanks to brand new ways of analyzing those original Apollo samples, we think we've found it.
It's really been an incredible scientific journey. I mean, think about it. It started with that bizarre seismic shock back in 1969. That led to wild theories in the 70s. Then we got hard data from the Grail mission in 2011. And now, today, it's all coming together thanks to our ability to re-examine those precious moon rocks with technology we couldn't have dreamed of back then.
And the proof? The smoking gun, it lies in the chemistry of potassium. Recent super high-precision analysis found that moon rocks are missing a lot of the lighter versions, or isotopes, of potassium compared to Earth. And this is exactly what the synestia theory predicts. In that incredibly hot vapor cloud, the lighter potassium isotopes would have literally boiled away into space, leaving both the newly forming Earth and moon with the exact same unique chemical signature, a fingerprint proving their shared violent birth.
So after all of this, after the conspiracies and the scientific crises, what is the moon? It's definitely not an alien spaceship. The truth, it turns out, is far more violent, and also far more personal.
The moon is a fossil. It's a literal piece of the original baby Earth, torn away in a cataclysm and then perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space for 4.5 billion years. It's not a spaceship. It's our silent, desiccated twin. You could even say it's like a rib, taken from our own planet's side and set in the sky to stabilize our world, to light our nights, and to forever remind us of the unbelievable violence it took to create the peaceful home we have today.